Hello and welcome to my review of the Primaris Space Marine force found in the Leviathan box set for Warhammer 40,000 from Games Workshop. Now this 10th edition kind of starter box set was released 2 months ago, back towards the end of June for a limited time, and then they discontinued it. And then what Games Workshop did in usual fashion is they kind of broke apart the box set into its individual forces, its units, and started selling those in different sets. So now you can still pick up kind of starter sets with some of these miniatures in and continue to save a little bit of money compared to buying all of these units separately. The one thing I will say that's missing from the Leviathan box set, you get some cards, you get the rule book, and you get the minis obviously. You don't get the usual things that you would get in a starter set, like dice, a game board, tokens, markers, range rulers, or a tape measure even, and also kind of rule specific book. Like there's no thin Leviathan book leaflet thing in here that has the data sheets on it, which is a real shame, and it's a far cry from other box sets that included those in. There's a big push on free rules, so you'll need like a computer or a tablet or phone or something like that to find the rules from their app, and you can do that for free, which is great, and I've always wished that they would release their rules for free. The kind of downside of that is they can change them overnight. So if you're used to certain units, then your rules could change, and also they can just take away rules completely. So all of those miniatures that you spent years and years collecting, land speeders, scouts, things like that, dreadnoughts even, they can just delete, and all of a sudden you've got no rules for your current edition. It's worth noting that you'll always have rules for previous editions, especially if you've got the codexes and things, but that's another point I'd like to make. So that means it's quite difficult really to sort of explain the force and how many points and things it costs. So what I did is I did go through every single one of these units and reviewed them all. So if you just type in Sternguard Space Marines, for instance, into Google and obviously Super Saiyan, you'll most likely find my review of the Sternguard unit. Likewise, if you type in the Ballistus Dreadnought, you'll find rules for that unit, and so on. I won't be going through each of these units' rules individually today, but I will be looking at each unit and going through them a little bit. So what does the Space Marine Primaris force consist of in this Leviathan box set? Front and centre, you're getting the Space Marine Captain in Terminator armour. What an incredible model. One of the biggest Terminators they've ever released, owing that to the large scenic base as well. Doesn't have a helmet option, although with a little bit of modding you could put a helmeted Terminator head in there, no problem. Comes with the classic power sword and stormbolter, and there's just plenty of detail. It's a nice HQ unit, and it certainly has a nice synergy with the kind of Terminator focused force, with the 5 Terminators that come with the force. All of the miniatures are monopose, easy to build, and that's including the Tyranid models as well. You can cut pegs off and slightly move arms and things around, so bear that in mind. Once all of these will inevitably come out in like a Hachette Partworks collection at some point in the future, so if you're going to be getting multiples of these, you can kind of change their arms a little bit slightly, but they are, other than the poses, going to look identical. But I can say that about a lot of Space Marines. Which brings us on to the sort of one of the star units in the box set, the Terminators. They are probably one of the main reasons why any Space Marine player would pick up this set. They're great. They're Primaris-sized Terminators. They're everything that we would wish for in a kind of upscaled Terminator armoured unit. They now hold their own along with regular Primaris intercessors. I think the size is fine. Games Workshop have already gone and said, you know, normal Space Marines are in these Terminator suits as well as Primaris, which is good. It's a good way of doing that. They've got nice dynamic poses as well, and they have just announced the standalone multi-part kit, which I'm definitely going to pick up a few units of those. So that's one of the star units of this force, the Terminators. Keeping with the Terminator theme, they also introduced a Librarian in Terminator armour. Not sure whether we needed one, but they provided us one anyway. I would have liked Champion instead of the sort of Intercessor Veteran, the Phobos Veteran, which we'll look at in a moment. There is a Chaplain coming in Terminator armour, and he does look pretty good actually, and it's going to work very well with these Terminator models. We also have the Biologist, very large model. It's an apothecary in Gravis armour, which is great because he's going to work very well. Very well with your other, you know, heavy intercessors. You know, just stomping about. Not sure we needed an apothecary, and he does look out of place compared to the other miniatures because none of them are Gravis. Maybe they could have swapped out 5 of the Infernus Marines for 5 heavy intercessors. That would have been nice. I know they're trying to, you know, introduce brand new models in this set. I would have preferred 5 heavy intercessors to 5 Infernus. Speaking of which, probably the weakest unit in the set, in the force for Space Marines for these Primaris, are the Infernus squad. I really don't get these, and I don't get why there's 10 of them as well. They're not that good in combat. They have very short ranged flamers, and there's no transport options either. Why would you take these when you could take heavy intercessors, eradicators, hellblasters even? They just seem very weak, and I'm not sure why we needed 10 of them. Looking at the new Assault Primaris Space Marines, they look awesome. It would have been nice to have 5, I don't know, monopose Assault Primaris with jump packs instead of 5 of these Infernus, and that would have, you know, rounded out the force quite well, because you've got a little bit of fast attack, you've got elite, you've got heavy support, and you've got HQ, and you've got troop. But I guess they were playing on having the, you know, the 2 Infernus as troops. Next, you've got the biggest model in the whole force, which is the Ballistus Dreadnought. It's the biggest model, and it's meh. It really is meh. In my opinion, they've been quite lazy about this Dreadnought. They've got the Redemptor Dreadnought chassis, and they've just stuck a twin-link las cannon and the missile launcher, and they've called it the unit specific weapon. So they've called it a Ballistus las cannon and a Ballistus missile launcher. It's got storm bolters on it as well, which again doesn't make sense. I would have preferred las talons or heavy bolters, just something, you know, to complement its range profile. But no, they just give it storm bolters, and also no missile rack at the top. Or rocket pod launcher. I mean, even a normal vanilla Redemptor Dreadnought has a strength 8, 24-inch range, up to 3 shot, damage 2 rocket pod. It could have one. Why would it not? It's a missed opportunity. It's all right looking, it's just boring, and certainly not as interesting as the Brutalis Dreadnought, which coincidentally has a pair of chest-mounted heavy bolters. It's bizarre, it really is. And then a model that is often overlooked and forgotten, but I think looks quite cool. is, dare I say it, a lieutenant or lieutenant from wherever you're from, with the combi weapon. Now, at the moment, it's a running joke that Primaris have so many lieutenants in their army. You've got a normal lieutenant, you've got a lieutenant in Phobos armour, you've got a lieutenant in Reaver armour, and you've got a lieutenant with a combi weapon. So this is the combi weapon issued 1. I can see what they've tried to do here, have the lieutenant with the stern guard, but with the Phobos armour and the lack of a helmet, him not even using that combi weapon, just holding a blade and things, it doesn't really work. I like the connection between this lieutenant with combi weapon and the Tyranids. I think that's great, and I also like the connection with the Terminator captain with the Tyranids, but nothing else really has another connection with the opposite force. It's just those two. And taken in isolation, that would be great, and even that lieutenant with combi weapon would probably work well with some new Tyrannic war veterans. But as it stands, that model just looks out of place, a little bit like the Apothecary in the Gravis armour. Those two just don't work well. I think there's just too many kind of HQ choices in this force, and not enough, I say, fast attack or heavy support even. And then the final unit we have here in the force is the Stern Guard Veteran Squad. Gone are the days when you can equip your veteran squads with your combi weapons and call it a, you know, combi melter or combi plasma, and then continue to use the plasma weapon. They're now just called a combi weapon. They have anti-infantry 4+ and devastating wounds, but you can't really kit them out in specific weapons to go after a specific target. So you can't equip them all with, you know, combi melters or combi plasmas or anything like that. They're just combi weapons. So I think that's another missed opportunity, although they do look quite nice, and Games Workshop are building upon those with another new multi-part, multi-pose kit. Interesting that they're not bringing out a multi-part kit for the Infernus squad. So they're bringing out a new Terminator captain that's multi-part, they're bringing out new Stern Guard, a Terminator chaplain, an Intercessor assault squad with jump packs, and a group of heroes. I feel after those releases, it would be a good time to release a flyer for Primaris, which they're severely lacking. Now, when this box set was released, it did cost £150. With a 20% discount, you were looking at about 120. If we were to split both the Space Marine Force and the Tyranid Force and not include that £40 rulebook, you're looking at £60 per force. At present, a Redemptor Dreadnought will cost you £45. I understand that the Ballistus Dreadnought at the back is an easy to build kit and was only on about 2 or 3 sprues, so very quick and straightforward to put together compared to a multi-part kit. So one could argue if they released that separately it would be £25, but even if it was £25, that's still £35 for 10 Infernus Marines, 5 Stern Guard, 4 HQ characters and 5 Terminators. I mean, I would pay £35 just for those Terminators. So that's an incredible saving, whichever way you slice it. So on the whole, I think it's a good force, barring the 10 Infernus and the boring Ballistus Dreadnought. I think it's alright. The Tyranid force doesn't escape my criticisms either though. But what do you guys think of this Space Marine Primaris force found in the Leviathan box set? What's your favourite unit in this? And what would you have preferred to see in the force? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.